Welcome to another episode, everyone. How does a man survive in prison once sentenced to 226 years with all of the violence, all of the misery that besets prison life, and you're trying to come home after being sentenced to 226 years at an extremely young age? How can you make it out? Can you make it out? Can you survive in that sort of situation? Let's get into it.
What was your initial sentence?
226 years to life?
226 years to life?
Absolutely. Somebody could get stabbed in the yard and it's nothing. Resume normal program. Somebody get killed on the yard and it's nothing.
Now, first and foremost, what's your name and where are you from?
My name is Deshaun Dorsey. I'm from San Diego, California.
And how long you been down?
9 years.
If you don't mind me asking.
Been down 9 years, and he looks young. He's young. So he came in when he was real young. He's young now. Look at him. And he came in when he was much younger, 9 years ago. How old was he then? However old he was, it did not matter to the system. They sentenced him to 226 years in prison at a very young age, saying that you will never see the streets again. This is what you're up against when you're out here making these foolish decisions and committing these foolish crimes and only looking at the beginning and not the end of this decision. You end up like this. You have to be smart and be careful.
And feel free to skip over the question, but what are you down for?
Murder, first degree murder.
You currently have a date?
No, I don't.
What was your initial sentence?
226 years to life.
200.
Yeah, that means no date. You currently have a date. The man just said he got sentenced to 226 years. No, he ain't got no damn date. They saying he's never coming home. You know somebody that's 226 years old? I don't.
26 years to life?
Absolutely.
How do you arrive at that number?
Just the different enhancements with it, the other different charges, attempted murder, that's what all led up to that, just the gang affiliation.
Gotcha. What gang were you affiliated with?
All from West Coast, 30s.
Okay. Is there anything you could speak to in terms of what happened that specific day? How old were you, first of all?
I was 20 years old. Around what happened was just, it wasn't even the spare of the moment. My mindset was on something. I felt that at that time, I was avenging my brother that lost his life, Jason Coney. And I felt that I was justified, So, of course, in my mind, I felt it was okay to, go out there and look for somebody that looked like me and basically take something from somebody else's.
Now, you didn't know this person?
No, not at all.
Just a random act, and you thought that would make you feel better?
Absolutely.
Did it?
Nah. And at the time, in that state of mind, who I was then, yeah, it made me feel good because I told myself this narrative, like, yeah, I did that, And then when the things hit the fan and I had to start to reflect and look at it, it wasn't even that. I just took somebody that wasn't even affiliated, So to sit there for...
So that's even worse. So he took a non-affiliate's life. He said that he was angry. His brother had been gunned down or knocked down or died. He didn't elaborate on how his brother had passed, but apparently someone must have done something to him, I'm assuming. And he was out looking for retaliation. And as he said, it seemed worth it at the time because you felt like you was getting some get back and even in the score. But in the end, it's not worth it. Of course, he realizes this now. We all realizes this shit once we're behind the wall. He realizes it now. He took another man's life that had nothing to do with your brother being unalive. He had nothing to do with it. He was a non-affiliate. He had nothing to do with it. And even if it was the homeboy of the individual that took your brother's life, it could have been his mother, his brother. They had nothing to do with it. It's only that individual that you have a problem with. If you take out anyone other than that individual, you done nothing. but ruin that person's life, that person's family life, and your family's life. And of course, I don't have to preach to this individual. He says, he realizes this now. I'm preaching to the rest of y'all. When something happens and you're ready to react, think first, because the reaction seems satisfying in the time. You can even the score and you feel better about yourself. But in the end, you are going to pay a hefty price, and it's not worth it. The price this individual is paying now.
So long believing something and telling myself this is what it was, it really wasn't. So I was full of myself the whole time.
Now, how long was it after that you ended up getting caught?
Like 7 days later, a week later.
Did you feel it coming in that 7 days? Were you
Yeah, I was
looking over
very
your
much
shoulder?
aware. I was very much aware just based on the acts that was leading up to that. I was aware that it was just a matter of time, so it wasn't a shocker to me when it happened, It wasn't a shocker.
Now, how long after did you start feeling a sense of regret or remorse?
I would say I went to the hole in 2021, 2019, I believe it was, or 20. And that's when I was back there in the hole. So when I was back there in the hole, of course, I had my brothers reaching out to me like, what's wrong? What's going on? Of course, I was in denial, like, man, nothing wrong. I had an assault on the police and I felt like, hey, I'm not really tripping. But just the letters, the content, my mom reaching out like, man, what's up? Like, what's wrong with you? Like, it seemed like you slipping into the dark. For me, it just made me reanalyze everything. And then I had a neighbor, right? And his name was Hot Wheels, right? So he had told me one day, like, man, when do you start living your truth? And that was my aha moment. So from that moment, I just start to look within myself internally. And I start to do certain things to make me face myself. Then later down the line, over time, I think my actions start to demonstrate differently because the remorse, it wasn't even just me feeling it. It was just me showing it, right? And that caused me to really, basically leave the politics alone. Tell myself, look, I'm not doing that no more. This is what I'm on because I'm doing it for Deshaun, And I think that's what really took the change right there, being in the back, somebody telling me, when do you live your truth? And then really asking myself, when do I live my truth? I could do it for any and everybody else, but when do I give it to Deshaun? And that was my aha moment, just to give it to me now.
Good, man. I'm so glad to hear that, for real. I could definitely see a change, brother. I didn't know you then, but I can feel it. I can feel it.
Absolutely,
what I'm saying?
no doubt.
It's a beautiful thing. So moving forward, what do you want your legacy?
And that's just it. You have to erase the anger, come to terms with yourself as a man, deal with your inner demons, deal with your problems, and come out better. When I say come out, I don't mean come out of prison, come out of the situation better. It might be here on the street, dealing with certain situations, dealing with certain anger, some sort of mental health crisis. And there's ways to deal with that. There's help for us, but don't take the anger out on anyone else and put yourself in a predicament that can cost you the rest of your life.
To be from this moment forward.
Okay, so my legacy for myself, right? Now I have daughters. That's for one. So knowing what I know now and where I was then, the state of mind, if I can give it back to my younger self, right? My legacy is basically bringing the light to the ones that, find comfort in the darkness, right? Whether that's mentally, emotionally, even spiritually, and just, changing the narrative, bro. That's my main thing, changing the narrative. It's one thing when we in a community and a lifestyle that prides destruction over healing. It's one thing when we sit there and have status over empathy. It's one thing to do that, but to really just to change it, like it's okay to sit there and be fine with certain things and we don't have to be members to make our family proud. We don't got to be members to get the recognition. We could do something different instead of being what my community wanted, being something that my community need. That's what it's all about for me. That's something I really feel as my legacy,
What's something that you wish somebody would have told you prior to you getting in this situation?
It's not even I wish somebody would have told me. I wish somebody would have just grabbed, because you can tell me all day, hey, Deshaun, don't do this, don't do that, because I had that. But that wasn't enough for me. I needed hands-on. I needed it to be like physical. So for me, it's just really, Don't just tell me something, show me. If you saying stay out of the street, okay, what's the alternative? What's my outlet? If I can't be in the streets, if you don't want me in the streets, give me something where I can channel that energy, where I can be better than what I may become if I'm like invested in the streets, you know? So really, that's really what it is with me.
It sounds like you're explaining, or you're stating like it's cruel to tell somebody not to do something without giving them another option.
Yeah, because you just running them to a wall. You tell me this, but you don't give me no A, B, and C. Like that don't make no sense. I'm telling you, oh, don't go out there and gangbang. But I'm not gonna tell you don't go out there and get a job. And this is how you can do it. And this is what this looks like. This the benefits of that. I can tell you multiple benefits of different other outlets. But when it comes to the game, what I'm gonna tell you, all you get is the attraction, the reputation, and then you get prison or death. Which one do you want, really? You know, so just really getting into that.
Got you.
I mean, he's an intelligent brother, obviously has come a long way, articulate, and is remorseful for his crime, apparently. And I understand some of what he's saying, that, you know, people showed him or told him a different way, or told him that this way wasn't the right way, but yet and still didn't show him a better way. Someone would just say, well, don't gangbang, but don't tell him how to get a job or how to work. I understand that. However, some things, sometimes you must figure out some things on your own, unfortunately, with the way that the community is right now. And then secondly, I believe that telling someone not to gangbang and why they should not gangbang should be enough. You know, even if the person doesn't have the necessary tools to tell you what to do instead or how to do it instead, they are still coming from a righteous place telling you that this is wrong right here. Not to do away with this. What you're going to do, I don't know, but don't do this. Gangbanging leads to life in prison, destruction, death. So don't do that. So maybe this individual, maybe me myself, may not have the skills to tell you, well, do this instead. This is where you can be productive at, even though our hearts may be in the right place. We don't have the necessary skills yet, but we can still speak to this is a destructive path because we've been on that path, and we know that you need to take another one, regardless of what that other path is, regardless of whether or not we're pointing you in that other path's direction or not. The fact is you need another path that is better than this one.
Man, so if you could say anything to, say, your 15-year-old self, what would it be?
For my 15-year-old self, pay close attention, for one. And it's okay not to be okay at times. And it's okay to ask for help. If you don't know, just ask. If you don't really want to do something and you don't feel like that's you, and you know it's not you, find an environment that could cultivate that inner side of you, that'll make you blossom into something that you know that your community just filters. This is what we do. So if you can find something different, find it and stick to that. Because everything that glitters is not gold. It ain't really what it seems, you know? So that's what I tell my younger self.
You've been lied to. A couple of the guys out on the yard also said that they adopted a false belief system, and it took coming to prison here to recognize that they were gangbanging against people who looked like them. Some of them who were their family members that they
Absolutely.
just didn't know. You know what I'm saying? So that was something that was heavy. You know, when I heard that today, man, it's like when I came here, like my so-called enemies became my friends and my support system, helping me to get through. Do you have a similar experience?
Absolutely. I mean, even the one that came with y'all, Devon Burns, you know, we grew up together. You know, we used to be in juvenile hall together. He was from the opposing team. You know, so of course we used to have our little fights and stuff like that. But even when I came in here in this situation, all that stuff was down. That was the first person that came to my door and checked on me. It wasn't somebody of my own community. It was somebody outside of that. So for me, it shut the barriers down. Then when I start to get into certain things or different information, I started getting exposure to that. It made everything different. Like I was out there looking, really, I just basically had a hood on, look for somebody that looked like me. I had a warped belief system, of course, you know, but that's what my community was. I don't shame it, you know, but of course my experience was like that because that's what the lifestyle was. And that's what we held dear to, you know? So yeah.
So question,
And true, and that's just the community, bro. But we have to get out of that mindset, out of that sort of environment, and not run from the community, but change the mindset of the community. Stay in the community, but change the mindset of the community. And that's it. And as I've said before, you commit crimes for your gang, you go to prison for your gang, you do life in prison, 226 years for your gang, for killing a so-called opposition to your gang, a so-called op. And so now you get life in prison for killing this op. But then you go to prison and now you're cool with the op that you're in prison for. That's who came to his cell door to check on him, his so-called op. Because now you in prison now. Y'all gotta stick together. But you in prison for the rest of your life for this. How does that make sense?
what's a common misconception or something that you feel like people believe on the outside about people who come to prison that is not true?
They don't care. That's the main thing, right? So they had something called the California model. And the first pillar of the California model was normalization, right? So when you see people in here, you don't see them, whether they did whatever the horrific the crime was, you don't see the work being done. You don't see the atonement process taking off. You don't see them acknowledging certain things and doing that. Not to say that we want gratification for that, but you don't see that. So of course, when you come into prison, you see, man, these dudes don't care. These dudes are hardcore and this and that. A lot of people do care. A lot of people just didn't have the support. A lot of people didn't have the foundation. A lot of people just didn't have that. So why shame somebody who just didn't have it? And the people who did have it, sometimes they were just misguided. And they just didn't have the people that can be in the front of them right then and there to guide them in the right way. So, I would think that's the most thing that we just don't care. We're not doing the work. When you'd be surprised how many people you can put in front of you and sit there and tell you their whole life story without no shame, because this is what it is. But they didn't just get there overnight. It took time. It took work,
Right. So one thing that it sounds like you're describing is accountability.
Absolutely.
And you're saying that there's a sense on the outside that you guys don't hold yourself accountable or take responsibility for your actions, when it's quite the opposite.
Absolutely.
Definitely something that I noticed when coming in here, and when I'm on the outside, I tell everybody, I said some of the most accountable people that I do know have been behind the walls, or I've met behind the walls. You know what I'm saying? So it's definitely interesting when it comes to that. What's something about you that most people wouldn't know about you by just looking at you?
I'm a Muslim.
Okay.
I'm a Muslim. I would think a lot of people would know that, I think my conduct speaks, but you still wouldn't know, right? I think that's one. Another thing is, I'm really like a geek, a nerd, Like running around with my shirt tucked in on the yard, that's not new. This is what I was doing on the street. So, that's something that's really me. That's who I am. So even when I meet people, I don't tell them, oh, this is who I, was, man. My name Deshaun, because that's who I represent myself,
Right.
So that's really it.
What does freedom look like to you?
Freedom.
That's cool, man. It seems like this brother has come to some realizations, some revelations, and at a young age. Of course, prison will do that. You lose your freedom, you lose your lifeline. You have to come to terms with it in one way or another. But it seems like he's done away with the gangs and is trying to better himself in one way or another, or in every way, and find himself out of there, find his way out of there. And he seems very respectful. It's just, I just hate the fact that oftentimes it comes to this before we get it, that you have to go to prison with a 226-year sentence before you get it. And now you have to hope that your new talents you can bestow upon the world, that they give you a chance to improve the world with your talents, because there are so many talented people behind prison that can actually shape and help to change the world. But many of them will never have the opportunity again based on ill-advised decisions that they made early on.
What does that word mean to you? What does it look like?
Like breaking the chains out of your mind. So I think for when you think about that, or when I think about that, when we talk about freedom, it's more just a physical thing, right? If I have the freedom to think, even when it comes to a decision, I got right or wrong. I got the freedom to choose. And I think when you find yourself in a space where you can make a decision, whether this could benefit me or whether this could, be a liability to me, that's freedom to me. When you can explore these different options rather than you just being closed off and you don't know nothing else but only what you know. I think that's really freedom. It's really just the mental thing, the spiritual aspect of it.
Absolutely, man. So if they opened up these gates here today, what's the first thing you would do?
I'm finna go check into some therapy. Absolutely. And the reason being for me is mental health is everything, right? It was a stigma, but I feel like mental health is everything. It's one thing to transition. Bro, I was told I had 226 years to life. And then they tell me in the next 3 years, hey, Deshaun, you going home. Okay, that's good. Even then, it's so much going on. I want to transition myself. So the first thing I would really want to do is check in with therapy, just really check on my mental health and make that a norm for myself, so I can check with me.
Yes, absolutely, because there's nothing wrong with mental health assistance, brothers. Should you need some, there indeed has been a stigma in the Black community about mental health. It's perceived as some sort of weakness or so. If you need mental health, if you need therapy to work through some issues that you may have personally. But I'm here to tell you that that's a fallacy. That's fallacious thinking. There's nothing wrong with mental health, counseling, or therapy should you need it. Do not be ashamed to go get it and save yourself and save your life.
Because I'm not expecting the next person to check. I wouldn't even check for my daughters or my wife to do it, So it's just really taking care of me first. That'd be the first thing.
So forgive me if I'm incorrect, but did I hear you say 3 years?
Yeah.
So you're going home in 3 years?
I mean, I'm not saying that,
okay,
but I'm manifesting that,
okay.
So the work that I do, I take it serious. I don't sit there and get caught up on the BS. So I put myself in spaces for a reason so that can happen. That's a reality to me, and I don't get caught up on the numbers, Of course, I have time to do, but the way prison is working, the way that I'm, willing to sacrifice myself for the greater good, it's just a matter of time. It's just a matter of time.
What would you give?
Yeah, and that's true. That's the way prisons work now. I'm sure he's referring to the fact that many people with extensive prison sentences now are coming home. They're not doing life in prison anymore, even though they have life sentences. They are coming home. So you have a chance. You're going to have to put in some sort of time, keep your nose clean, but hope is not lost.
In this moment to be free?
Time, really. I just give my time. And I think that that's the most valuable asset I can give rather than giving anything else, my time, because my time in exchange for my freedom, I took freedom for granted. I didn't even know what that looked like. So now I'm being in this space, and if I'm asked this question, like, what would you give for your freedom? My time. Because it's in time where you sit there and find things that you didn't know about yourself. It's in time where you can sit there and relax and really pay attention and get into it. Even the most softest or fragile parts of yourself. It's in time that you can find all of this. So I'll give my time.
It sounds like clearly you're willing to sacrifice your former self for that freedom.
Absolutely.
That's a big sacrifice, brother. For real,
Sure.
I commend you for that. Now, obviously today, we came out, we had fun, we smiled,
Absolutely.
And people today will see the brighter side of prison. Can you speak to just a couple of those darker moments, or just speak to certain things about prison that are not as pleasant for anybody who might be listening or watching this, so that they can understand just the gravity of the situation and understand that this is not somewhere they want to be?
So one thing I would say is this: it's trauma, right? All over, right? For one. And trauma is not just, the physical. Yeah, you may see that, but the mental. But it's so regular and normalized that somebody could get stabbed on the yard and it's nothing. Resume normal program. Somebody get killed on the yard and it's nothing. Just being around that over and over and over and over again, you desensitize yourself, so it's really nothing. But how do you it makes it difficult for us because when the time do come, when the door open, how do we sit there and get back into feeling or normalizing things when we've been so desensitized? So then it's a disconnect when your daughter or your son is actually you something and you can't even relate because you're so disconnected, so we doing harm to them because hurt people hurt people. So I think in an environment like this, when we talk about them dark moments, although it was smiles, that's peaceful, right? It changes the narrative for the men out there. It changes the men. It just changes us because it's a glimpse of something. You guys are coming in here and you're normalizing. You treating us like human rather than a number. So, being in here, the dark moments, dealing with the staff, you getting treated like it doesn't really matter. Granted, I'm not gonna say I get it, but you get treated like this, like you a number, like it don't matter. You in here, this is what it is. That's not something you really want to deal with when you really get into the thick of it, because it's like, damn, I'm not like, okay, y'all may have did this, but a lot of them people done did something too, and they just slipped through the cracks. So why judge me because I just got caught for something? So that's one of the darkest moments for sure.
So one last question.
Yeah, dealing with all of the nonsense, dealing with being dehumanized, treated as a subhuman is what he's referring to. As if your life doesn't matter or it is not even recognized, as if it does not exist. And the desensitization that he is referring to is a real thing. The same as individuals who have been to war and come home and they have PTSD and such because they've witnessed so much brutality and survived it. The same can be said with individuals in prison who witnessed many deaths, many stabbings, many beatings, and you are trained to just walk past it. You can't get involved. You have to mind your business. So you're watching someone being brutalized and you can't do anything or even say anything about it. This is not regular. This is abnormal. To witness such an event and not be traumatized by it or not have any issues over it. And they're in prison, you're witnessing this brutality time and time again. It's prevalent. And thus, you're constantly with these problems mentally. Unless you're just some sort of hardcore individual without feeling. But if you have any human feeling, then you feel for the brutality that besets you there in prison. And then you come home and you're trying to relate to your family and friends, and you're not expressive, and you're not emotional enough, you're not emotionally available. They can't understand why you're so cold and hard. And it's because of the experience that you had in there where you've seen so much brutality and you couldn't do anything about it or even say anything about it. All you could do was internalize it. And if you are a human being with any human feeling, that this will cause conflicts on the inside of your soul.
And what does love mean to you, and how important is that?
Oh man, love. I think for me, love is the most creative force in the universe, right? And I think for me, when you talk about love, it just breeds justice, freedom, and equality all over, right? Because, even when we looking in the universe, right, I just feel like, the sun gives life to the plants, right? And it causes the earth to rotate on its axis. It's a form of love, right? And that allows the earth just to do what it's supposed to, allows the plants to justify its existence. Everything finds some type of balance, right? And I think when we talk about love or what is love, it allows you to be free, bro. You be fair with yourself. You find your own balance to deal with you. You deal with others in a different type of way when you have a real sense of love, when you have a real form of love, It is just not just a word, bro. It's an action. It's like really is action in that. So I just think love is just an action. That's really what it is.
Man, brother, well, I can say this wholeheartedly, just meeting you, bro, but I already love you, bro, for real.
Sure.
And I appreciate you.
Bro. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you.
It's good.
For real,
It's
man.
good.
For real,
It's
man.
good.
Thank you so much
All
for
day.
talking to us, man.
All day.
Could you just do me a favor and say and spell your name?
Deshawn Dorsey, DeshawnDorsey.
Any other messages you want to give to anybody out there? You could look directly in the camera. If there was anybody you could talk to right now, just give it to them real quick before you get out of here.
For the ones who know, I love you, and it's never a goodbye. It's always just to see you later, and it's just a matter of time. Just stay focused. It's just a matter of time. Thank you.
Wow. Yeah, there you have it, man. Young brother seems to have his head on correctly. More intelligent than I was, maybe at that age. More inclined to do right at this point in his life than I was. I was still headstrong, and at 29 years old, I'm assuming he is, something like that. It's unfortunate, You go through this, you stay down for your gang, you commit all sorts of crimes for your gang, and then you go to prison, and the same gang that you did all of this for, that you have life in prison for, now turns their back on you or attacks you, or you're now cool with the individuals of the opposing gang that you're in prison doing life for. None of it makes any sense. The only thing that makes sense is to get your life in order, to live your life in a positive and productive direction, and to stay out of these situations. That's the only thing that makes sense, bro. That's the only thing that makes sense. Because if you do this, it'll catch up to you later on. It feels good in the moment, and then it catches up to you later on. That's it. Take heed to this individual and his situation. A wise man learns from someone else's mistakes. This is what wise people do. You don't want to make the same mistake that he made. That's not wise. He made the mistake so that you don't have to if you're paying attention. I made my mistakes. I did time in prison so that you don't have to if you take heed and be wise. Stay safe and stay free, people.